Hello and welcome to another episode of the Your Way podcast. So this week we are doing part 2 of Have We All Got the Same 24 Hours in a Day? And I have 3 more exceptional guests to explore this topic with. So welcome to Jan, Charlotte and Nicole. Lovely to have you all here. So what I thought I would get you to do, please, is to introduce yourself and then share, as part of your introduction, what comes up for you when you hear the question, do we all have the same 24 hours in a day? And you can feel free to make your answer as short or as long as you like. Jan, do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Jan King and I am an emotional intelligence coach and profiler. And when this question came up, it was initially, yeah, of course we do. We all have the same 24 hours. And then it was like, do we? I'm not sure here. And then I was kind of like thinking about my 24 hours, and it depends the time of year, what is going on for me, who has really pissed me off, as to whether it's a good 24 hours or a really shitey 24 hours, and sometimes 24 hours is like 3 hours too, because you can go down a rabbit hole. And I'll give my example of a rabbit hole could be that you think that you are being really productive for your work, but you've gone onto TikTok to look for one thing, and then you are down that rabbit hole 8 hours later, 4 o'clock in the morning, whilst you've still got a Love Actually film going on. You're like, well, I've only been on here for 20 minutes, so those same 24 hours do not become the same 24 hours.
Yeah, I love that. Thanks, Jan. Charlotte, over to you. I'm going around my screen.
I'm smiling. I'm just smiling at Jan's reaction to that question. So hi, I'm Charlotte. I have a few parts to my life that make it whole. So I will work part-time for a corporate in an organizational development role. I'm a women's leadership coach and really support around significant changes around professional and personal development. And also I am a mum to a 1-year-old and a 6-year-old. Do we all have the same 24 hours in a day? My instant reaction was no. To kind of Jan's reaction of it depends on the time of year. It depends what's going on in my ecosystem. It genuinely depends on who's around me and the energy levels I've got. So no. And also, I am fascinated by this question and how other people see it, because I think being part of a corporate as well for a very long time, there does seem to be this perception that we all need to be really efficient and operate, to maximum capacity. And so we should all have the same 24 hours and work 24 hours a day, given a global organization across multiple time zones.
Yeah. Thanks, Charlotte. Nicole, I'm loving your faces. Hit us.
The specificity, Jan, of 8 hours on TikTok while Love Actually is in the background kills me. Oh my gosh. Just get out of my living room. Okay. Get out of my living room. So my name is Nicole Steinbach. I am obviously an extrovert. I'm also very expressive, which is super fun because I'm a woman in technology. So I built my career in Germany. I lived in Germany for 13 years, worked in technology for about 30 years or 20 years. Oh my gosh, I just aged myself 20 years. And then moved back to the United States to do some cool corporate global, Charlotte, to your point, work. Did that for a few years, and in 2019 stepped out with my expertise to start coaching women in technology. So I coach women in technology all over the world to the point of time zones and emotional intelligence, to Jan's point. And I have a podcast called Celebrate Brave Careers. What comes up for me with the 24 hours a day? So I'm a former executive. I had a team, and I had part-time and full-time assistants, right? And then I also had a matrix team that did work for me. And my strong answer is absolutely not. You know, we hear this a lot with, so I'm a white woman, so I'm going to take examples from my world, American white woman, Taylor Swift, right? Taylor Swift has 4 administrative teams, 4. So Taylor Swift, there's a lot of things that Taylor is not doing that I need to do. Past me with a team behind me. There were a lot of amazing ideas. I could sit in a room and be like, hey, how about we? And somebody would go, ooh, and take that and run with it. And now when I go, how about I'm the one that needs to actually do the work. Right? Now, of course, in my business, I have some support, but I don't have any full-time employees. And I have people who are contracting, who are experts, but they also have other clients. So they need to be supportive of that as well. This is one of the key things I talk to my women in technology about, because in such a patriarchal white supremacist system like technology, this is something that is drilled into people. And what I recommend to everyone, and to Jan, to your point, I have a TikTok about it because I get so fired up about it, is be careful who you're taking advice from. An ice bath bro who wakes up at 5 o'clock in the morning usually has in their little credits, thank you to my devoted wife who takes care of my entire life so I can focus on my business. I don't know about you guys, but I personally do not have a full-time wife or husband. So no,
we do not. Thank you, Nicole. And so I want to also share what came up for me, because so I came to the world of coaching a little bit over 5 years ago now, on the back of burnout. And I had an abundance of time and exactly zero energy. I was fried, was absolutely fried. And when you start your own business, whether it's a coaching business or something else, there's a lot of noise out there about how you need to hustle and push and do the long hours and do all of the things. I was just not in a place where that was possible. I didn't have the capacity. I didn't have the energy. I had an abundance of time. I was off. But I just needed to rest. And so when it came to building my business, I had to do it in a way that goes against the grain of what you need to do and how you need to push yourself because of my capacity. And also, I'd come from a very A-type, perfectionistic, people-pleasing, high corporate, high-pressured environment. And you know what? Also, and this might sound really entitled, and maybe it is, I was done with that. I didn't want to have to work crazy hours all the time and get up at 4 a.m. and work till midnight and all of the rest of it. I wasn't interested. I was like, I tried on that outfit and it didn't fit me very well. So like now I need to do something different. And so I don't think we all have the same 24 hours in a day. And I think we also get to choose, and that's the bit that we sometimes miss. We actually get to choose what we want our 24 hours to look like. We might not have absolute choice, depending on how our lives are structured or how work is structured, but there is an element of choice. And I think sometimes getting to that place of realizing what you want, which I think often starts with realizing what you don't want, it's a really good way into thinking about how you want to spend your time. So what I would love to talk about next, I have observed you all in different ways. And what I believe deeply is that I have seen you demonstrating some incredible flexibility in your time over the periods. And what I would love to hear from you is that how you always were? Did you have to get to a point where you could do that? Like, what did it take for you to be able to do that? So here's my examples. I'm going to give you what I've observed, but then you can also bring in other stuff if you want. So Nicole, I first met you, I believe, at the end of July, start of August last year. And you were in Europe.
Yes. Yes, I
you
was
were
back
having
home.
and
Yeah.
you were having August off. The podcast was off, work was off, you weren't
Yeah.
engaging with stuff. You were
Yeah.
like, I'm on vacation. I will
Yeah.
be engaging with the world again in September, right? Which is a
Yeah.
massive chunk of time.
Actually, can I correct you?
You can, please.
Okay. I was off all of July. I started serving my clients again in August, but everything external facing, I came back to in September.
Yeah.
And it's so funny for all of your entrepreneurs who are listening to this, or even people in corporate who are trying to find their next step. I knew of you long before you knew of me.
Mm.
Yeah. So 2 months from marketing, strategy, creation, etc.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is incredible. So I would love to know then, what did it take for you to feel able to do that? Is it like, was it just like a natural gift of like, I can just take time off? What happened for you to get to that place of, I'm going to take 2 months off?
Oh my goodness. Okay. So such a good question. Let me think about it. So I really want to come back to your comment about the privilege of the non-hustle. So I grew up in a single parent home with a lot of lack of financial, like poverty. We had welfare when welfare became available in my area, and not hustling is a privilege. Having the space to not hustle is such a beautiful thing that I believe we are all working to create for all of the women and men around us and non-binary people around us. So I just really wanted to underline that, because the answer to your actual question is, I, like you, was working insane amounts. And in fact, my now husband had told me, like, I really love you. I really appreciate you. And if you cancel another holiday, this was in 2007, 2008, 2007, I'm just not going to be able to do this anymore. And I lived in Germany. I was in the United States with 10 days of paid and 3 days of sick leave, right? I was in Germany. This was crazy, right? But I was so scared of falling into financial lack again. I was so scared of, going through the couch for coins, which is for food, right? Which is one of my most present childhood memories, that I wasn't willing to take time off. And so I slowly built the ability to say no, which was one of the bravest moments in my entire life, I think. I also dealt with the consequences of that, right? Because when we choose not to hustle, there are consequences. We get to decide which consequences we wish to have. And then when I got married in 2009, we took a month holiday for our honeymoon, I think 8 months later, to New Zealand. Now, this was 2010, I believe, in March 2010. Yeah. So I think I was so fancy as to have a BlackBerry, which you couldn't really reach me in New Zealand and so I built first in small increments a day here, signing off at 5 p.m. here, right? So that when I became an entrepreneur, and my family, most of my rooted family are my in-laws, and they're in Germany, I am not going to see them once, twice a year across my laptop. I'm not going to do that. And one of the things that my clients really need to learn is boundaries and taking time off. So my promise is that they're going to stress less and then they're going to work less. And that includes taking time off, right? Yeah. And so what I tell people when they're starting to work with me, or they're thinking about working with me, is, listen, I will show you how to work less, and I will show you how to hold boundaries with my own behavior. So when I am home with my family in Germany, especially as they age, right? My nephews and my niece are growing. The elder generation is, they're old. They're old, right? I'm not going to be available, because I want you to see that you can be successful with that as well. Yeah. I feel uncomfortable every single time.
That's what
I'll be honest with you.
Yeah.
Feel super uncomfortable. It's brave every time. And for some of my clients, actually, I believe all of my clients, I still check in once or twice, because there's always something that's happening, right? There's always something, like they're negotiating or they're dealing with a toxic situation. For some of my clients, I'll set up some way for them just to drop documentation. So if and when I have that space, I can look at it. But that's part of love, right? That's part of like love for self and love for others. Because I don't understand why I shouldn't check in when it feels super solid, brave, and confirming for me.
Yeah, and that's such a good point actually, about because there's no right or wrong. Like if you're off, you need to
Yeah.
be completely off, or if you're working, you need to be completely working. I think what's so important is we get to choose how we spend our time. So I love what you said there. So Charlotte, hello.
Hi.
My observation for you is that you have a big ass job. That's just what I'm going to call it. You have a big ass job, right? And you have molded this big ass job into a part-time role that gives you flexibility in time and allows you to do things that interest you. You've got two young kids, one very young kid, one I think I'm let's go with two young kids. One 6 who's still young. And similarly, actually, last August, September, you also took a chunk of time off. But so you can talk to that, but also for me, it's the way you have kind of molded your entire life to be quite flexible. So again, I would love to hear from you about, I guess, what led to that. What did it take for you to be able to do that? How do you experience it? Anything that you want to say on that?
It's really interesting because I have quite a challenged relationship with the word flexible. I'll come back to that in a moment. But I guess I also had a period of overwhelm and burnout. So after my first child, so my story was very much I did okay at school. I did okay. I was never like the A grade student. I wanted to be, but I wasn't. And so I had this message within me that I felt never good enough. And it was a message I strongly took through life. And then somehow my career happened and I outperformed where I thought I'd ever be in life. And so I kept going, and the promotions kept coming and I kept pushing. And then I had a child and then it didn't work anymore. This kind of just pushing and overworking and the long hours and being in a big role and giving just didn't work, to the point where I was physically unwell and had a temperature and just couldn't get rid of it for a very long time. And I had a lot of coaching support after that of like, I really want to work in corporate and I want to be a mum and I want all of those things to be possible. And I think there's always this message around you can have it all. And I'm a strong believer, the women I work with, yes, but maybe not in the order that you want, and maybe not everything in one go. And so that's kind of really my relationship with flexibility is I then figured out actually what was really, really important through, some deep coaching, some deep work on myself. And my reason for my relationship with flexibility is quite challenged is because I think the words flexibility and balance are overused, just like totally overused. And so I'm a firm believer, and the way that I kind of make all of those things work is it's an ecosystem for me. And they all have importance, but they may not all have importance at the same time. So some weeks my daughters need me and they get me. Some weeks the corporate job needs me and it gets me more. And some weeks my clients need me and I spend more time coaching. And I've just got really comfortable. The control freaks got really comfortable with you can have it all, but you have to let go and you've just got to lean into whatever's ever needs your attention. And you need to look after yourself in the sense of within all that ecosystem, there is space within that for me as well.
Yeah. And do you feel like the burnout was a catalyst for like, I've got to do things differently and I've got to create space? Like, what allowed you to be in this place of, because it's you talk to most people and they trot out all the different things in their life, and the bit that's missing is them, like how they're looking after themselves and what they're doing. And so, for you to mention that there, and I know anyway, because I know you quite well, like it's a big part of your life. But, so is it always been that way, or did something shift for you to be able to be in that place of, okay, well, within this ecosystem and whatever's going on, I also need to be looking after me.
Yeah, definitely burnout. Huge, 100%. Like there was a moment of I'm not being a mum. I want to be here, and that was a massive catalyst to me in terms of change. But also, I think the other big one was I looked for role models and I couldn't find them. You know, the role model. So my husband has a big job, and the role models around me, the women that I worked with, they were often the sole breadwinners. So back to kind of what Nicole was saying, the husband was at home doing all of the admin and the support, or they had children at boarding school and they had childcare, you know, from 5 in the morning through to 10 at night. And it just wasn't it's not how I saw life. It wasn't what was important to me. And so I really had to find my own way. I guess it comes back to the work I've been doing with you, Louise, but it's really around, it was quite a deep path, but also took a lot of challenging conversations along the way to reform things. So, you know, doing a senior job in 3 days a week, there's not many people doing that. And so I don't know many people doing that and a coaching business, right? And so it's been about forming a path that's right for me, but it is lonely. It's lonely in the sense that I haven't had those role models to kind of look up to and go, that's how you do it. It's just been a case of taking the next step and taking the next step and then taking the next step and just seeing what works.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you. So I was on Nicole's podcast last year, and she asked me at the end as a question about like, who's your role model? And I was like, I really find this question hard. And she was like, well, sometimes I think it's because we set our own bar too high of perfectionism that other people around us don't get to be role models. And I was like, yes, and also there's not actually that many positive roles out there. Like it can be really, really challenging. And what I love, Charlotte, is by doing the stuff that you are doing, you aren't necessarily creating a role model for yourself, but you are in yourself creating a role model for other people.
You know, it's not been my intention, but I guess it's, you know, as we talk about, Louise, being the ripple effects of this, of my coaching practice is built with women trying to figure out their way.
I love that. Thank you. Okay, Jan, it's your turn to be under the spotlight. So, Jan, I'm sure there's many, many examples, but the thing that has blown me away is so Jan periodically, and I would love you to talk to this a little bit more, Jan periodically assigns a 72-hour period just for herself, which I think is absolutely fucking incredible, right? Now, last year, I believe it was once a quarter, and this year, like, we're going to do it more frequently. But I would love for you to talk about how you got to this place, what's required to get there, because Jan, you don't have a quiet life. You have a busy, lots going on life, and yet you're like, and I'm going to take this time for me, and it's going to be glorious. So I would love to hear more about that. Maybe how you spent your last 72 hours, if you feel like sharing. And then also what it's kind of taken for you to get to that place. Thanks. You are muted though right now.
So once upon a time, I had that big corporate job whereby I would leave my home in the suburbs and go into London. And I had to be in the office for about 7 a.m. And in 1999, when I had my first child, I arrived into work at 7:05. My boss told me I was late. And I said, okay. And I turned around. I got back in the cab that he paid for me to come into work every day. And I went home.
Yay!
And he said to me, are you coming back? Now, because he knows me really, really well. And I was like, no, absolutely not. If you think that you can speak to me to tell me that I'm late when I have, at that time, I think Luke would have been 3, maybe 4 weeks old. I mean, I went back to work like straight after having a child, and I had a cesarean. So, you know, I am less than impressed, hormones flying. And it was like, nope, I'm not coming back to work. That's it. I'm done. And it was at that point that I was going to find a job that was working from home. So you can imagine 25 years ago, working from home was not an option. Working part-time was not really an option. But somebody presented an opportunity to me that was to work 39 weeks of the year. And I said, yes, but only if I work from home, I have broadband, I have all these things. They were kind of like, do you really get to choose? And I was like, yeah, I do. I do get to choose. I said, do you want me or not? Because if you want me, this is what it will. I said, it's not even a cost, it's a benefit. I said, because that time that I am not traveling to work, that I am not sitting in traffic, getting myself stressed out, I am being productive for you. So you actually get more of me.
Go on, Jan.
So 20 something years later, I still work from home. I still work 39 weeks of the year for exactly the same person.
Wow.
And they have been incredible in how I set myself up, because we have a lot of time, and it's like, how are you going to use that time? So every Friday somebody gets a day in the organization I work in, somebody gets a day off, and that day off is because he doesn't want you saying that you're going to the dentist, doctor, or whatever. And I'm like, that's mean. And he said, or is it fair? I said, no, it's mean, because it's making us push things into one day. We need more time to because you can't always guarantee that you're going to get an appointment on a Friday. I said it needs to be a day that suits us when we've got that appointment, not a day that suits you because it happens to be a Friday and no one wants to work. And he's always said to me that I'm feisty. I don't think it's about being feisty, it's about not allowing yourself to not take care of yourself. So from an early age, self-care has been really, really important to me, because I had a husband who worked away, and I was looking after 2 boys. I say on my own, I say that really loosely, because I'm a real firm believer of the extended family and using everything that's available to me. So my parents actually were instrumental in raising my boys more so than I was, because I wanted the time to find out who I was and what I wanted to do. And I also knew there would come a point where they would leave and I would still be needing to transition further into my life. So that's why I think taking time for myself is really important. And you know, when I first said about the 72 hours, I remember somebody saying to me, you're going to call your mother. So the first thing I did was put a boundary in there. I said, Mum, don't call me for 72 hours because I need to be able to not talk to you for 72 hours. And she said to me, what am I going to do? So I sent her a voice note. And at the end, I said, listen to this on repeat. So that was the boundary in place. It sounds unkind, but it's kind as well.
Yeah.
So you kind of like have to set the tone of where your boundaries are and what you're going to do. And I guess it's from having not lots of things go wrong with my life, but my son, I had to section my son when he was 17, so that involved for me having to take care of myself before I could take care of everyone else. And I think from an early age I've always learned that self-care, self-love, your cup being overflowing is the only way that you can pour into other people, otherwise you are depleted. So taking 72 hours now on a quarterly basis is an absolute joy. And you know, it's usually a meditation retreat, something that I haven't done that I want to do, but will also challenge me as well. So I mean, one of them is going to be to go whitewater rafting. Now I don't like water, I just don't like that free flowing water. But I know that I could do it, and because someone's challenged me, it's like, yeah, I'm going to do it. And it's so far out of my comfort zone that yeah, I know it's going to be good, and there are going to be tears.
Yeah, amazing. And then I'm just curious, not my lived experience, but it sounds like for you that like self-care, I need to take care of me, was in like, it feels like it wasn't something that you had to learn as an adult. It feels like it was instilled in you. Is that fair? Or did you like
Um, the bathing culture is a culture of relaxation and being on the beach and having family time. So as a child, you were left to get bored. You know, you were left to do absolutely nothing. And some of my best moments as a child were doing absolutely nothing.
Mm.
Why would I want to lose it? You know, you don't want to lose
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. You want to hold on to it because you know it benefits you.
Yeah, yeah. And I love that because, and actually maybe Charlotte and Nicole, you can jump in here, because my experience was, if I wasn't being productive and doing stuff, then I was bad and I was lazy. And I could have been at school all day, and I played the trumpet at school. I could have had a band before school, something at lunch, something after school. I could have come in and then done my homework. So at this point, I've been going for what, 15 hours, and I sit down to watch the TV. And my dad would come in and turn the TV off and be like, stop watching that rubbish. Or we'd have to go into the living room with them and watch University Challenge, which I know they don't have in the States, Nicole, because you guys don't understand Start for 10. But because I've said that to people before in sessions, I'm like, there's a starter for 10. And they like look at me and they're like, and I'm like, okay, this doesn't translate. A quiz show, essentially, that's like two university teams against each other, but like quite intellectual questions. So like that was productive enough to be allowed, but otherwise, and it's not like we never got to watch TV, but that's like an enduring memory. Like we always had to be doing.
I feel like this is
Go on.
a cultural clarity moment because we have Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, which is like the exact opposite of what you're talking about here. I feel
We
like
also have Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, though.
I feel like there's some value here that we could pull apart.
Yeah, it is the exact opposite of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, but we also have Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. Like, you know, everyone's tailored to over here. So anyway, so
So
Nicole, while you're here, so what's your experience of that?
okay, so we all grow and we all change to exactly what you and Charlotte and Jan have been talking about. I had a fundamental shift this past weekend on this topic, and I cannot believe the universe is bringing this to me right now. So I too felt I'm the oldest cousin. I am not blue collar. I'm not naturally skilled at blue collar engagements. I heard my entire life, oh my, we got to send this one to college. We got to send this one to college, right? And I felt the perfectionism. I felt the need to perform. That was confirmed over and over and over and over again. However, this weekend, one of my beloved kiddos is 12 and is going through all the things that happen when you're 12, and was talking about how unfair it is that there are chores and there's that. And I was attempting to connect, did not do a good job. Do not take this as parenting advice. And basically, I was like, listen, when I was your age, I had two siblings I took care of. I got them on the bus. We lived far away from everything. I get them off the bus. I made sure that they did their homework. Do not do this, please. Please do not do this. However, my little one, who's 10, then said, but mommy, you told us you didn't have a TV. We were too poor. We did not have a TV for many years. And then we had a TV, but it was broken and we were so far out and yada, yada. What did you do? You must have been really bored. And that question and the healing that I've been doing in the last few years, and then healing also as a mother and building mothering skills, opened up an entire reality to me that we were very frequently bored. We had no supervision. My mom had to hustle to keep us fed and clothed and housing. And Jan, sorry, I keep saying it as a German. I really apologize, Jan. That what you just said about exploring and playing and being bored and the pleasure of being bored, an entire set of memories I have completely pushed away came rushing back in. And now I understand my reading, my desire to go outside of things, because the power of being bored, of being creative, of filling that with that which gives you joy, which you go towards naturally, versus watching. And I've actually seen that show before, Louise. It is boring. I don't want to have a beer with any of those people. They seem very unpleasant on that show. I'm sure they're lovely people in real life, but that show is, it's like pressured. It's like perfection. It's like, don't get the verb form wrong. Don't get the verb form wrong. Right. And so that's really how I feel about the 24 hours now as well. And it's beautiful that I get to share this on your podcast as soon as it happened. Basically, there's so much pleasure in unstructured time and activities to build connection.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you. Charlotte, anything that you want to add?
I think there is just something to build on in terms of like just being with stillness, right? Just stillness. It's something I've really had to learn in terms of really built up with this kind of piece of busyness equals worthiness. And the worst thing that anyone could have said to me was I was lazy. Genuinely, like I remember my coach saying, what's the worst thing that could happen? And saying that word and feeling like physically like it was too much. And going through quite a journey of stillness. And now I love stillness. Like this morning, it'd been a busy weekend with the girls, busyness, and just went for a walk, but you know, without not with headphones in or just like busyness in other ways, just genuinely just being with the world and stillness. And it's just something I've really had to teach myself as an adult, and something I'm really trying to bring into my girls' life, because they're consumed. Like school is consuming, clubs is consuming. There's no stillness to life, or not enough stillness to life. And it's just really important value to me now.
Yeah, I love it. So as we come to the end, I would love you to share, and I'm sure there's many, many things, okay, but maybe just pick one thing, because otherwise we'll be here forever. What is maybe not but a predominant factor that determines how you choose to spend your time now? There was the wrong inflection at the end of that sentence. That's the whole sentence. That's the whole question. What drives your time now? Question mark. And please feel free to dive in as you wish.
I do not understand the question.
Okay.
I so apologize, but I don't
That's
understand
okay.
the question.
No, that just means that I've asked the question badly. So if you think about the things that, Jan talked about self-care, and we talked about that need to be worthy and to prove and all the rest of it as been potential drivers in the past for how we've used our time. What drives how you use your time now? What motivates? So what goes into, if you had a machine and you put stuff into the machine, and then the other side of the machine is how you spend your time, what's going into that machine? That's not a better way of asking the question, Nicole, but I'm hoping.
Okay, but I think I have an answer.
Okay.
Celebration. And here's an example. Charlotte, I am so excited that you are out here being called that you have a big ass job, and you at no point in time felt the need to minimize it or correct it or make it more specific. You were just like, yeah, I do. That is correct. And Jan, the way that you owned your expertise, and that you owned that so many of us stand on your shoulders of transformational workplace shifts, like I just am so grateful for that. And I really celebrate both of you. And I'm so excited that I got to be on here. And so, Louise, I just continue to celebrate that you and I share a name. My middle name is Louise for everyone, because I don't think I said that. And you continue to create opportunities for women and people to share what's really their way of doing it. And when I celebrate, I am so much more kinder to myself. I'm so much more brave. And perfectionism can take a long walk off a very short pier.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you. And on that note, I would just like to say to the men out there, you are welcome on this podcast. Put your big brave pants on. Come and speak to me. Let's do an episode.
Good luck.
Because it's not an all-female panel for lack of trying to get. Yes.
We'll get you on that then. Okay. Time for me. What goes into how I allocate time? Not an awful lot, and it for my business, it's something I have to really, really work on, because I have to coach people that sometimes struggle to get out of bed. You know, the jobs that they do is predominantly in the catering industry. What they do is a tough gig. And as they say, Jan, you only have to stand there, don't you? And it's like, yeah, I only have to stand there. And you have to be your best person, because you are that person who deals with something that is so powerful. So you need to be able to acknowledge it, and I will help you to acknowledge what it is that you need to acknowledge. And then they go, so it's not just standing there. It's like, call it what you will and do it how you will. And I think that's what we need to be doing with time.
I love that. Thank you. Charlotte?
I think and the word that came up for me is energy. If it brings energy, I'll do it. And I really notice like how I'm driven by energy in life, just from going through a period of burnout and pushing myself beyond, you know, a place where my nervous system was comfortable. Now it's just a question if someone brings something, I'm like, have I got the energy for this? And does it feel positive?
Yeah.
And I'm in.
Yeah, and that is one of the I mean, you know, it's one of the core questions that I talk about as well. So one of the reasons we're doing time podcast stuff is because I've got a new monthly group membership starting called About Time. In fact, I think this episode comes out the week of the first call, but it's kind of a rolling thing. You can join whenever. And that is one of the questions in there for people to consider when you're looking at, like, what do I want to prioritize this week? What do I want to do today? When you look at the stuff on the list, the question, not the question, but our question is, have I got the energy for this? Because how often do we override and push through and go against our kind of needs and all of the rest of it because we think we should? And actually, if we can come back to that place of, have I got the energy for this? And then if we can actually follow through with the answer, because we've got the capacity to do that, then we won't go far wrong. So I love that you brought that up right at the end, Charlotte.
I think
so.
Louise,
Go on,
you know, as we get older, and I'm guessing I'm probably the eldest one here, how you spend your time, you naturally will slow down, because I know that, you know, in my 30s, 40s, 50s, I was a lot faster than I am now. And I think not letting it bother you and going at your own pace is a really important lesson to learn.
Yeah, I love that. And I still can't quite get my head around the fact that you aren't in your 40s, but there we go. That's the topic for another day. So that's what I've got for you today, ladies, in terms of questions. I'd love you to finish just by sharing, and we'll put this all in the show notes as well, but just sharing where people can, I'm going to come to you in a second, Nicole. So where people can find you, and like any links that you want to share. Nicole, go.
Okay, so I'm a challenger and a revolutionary by profile. So Louise, we can't get off here without you saying what you think about 24 hours.
Okay, yeah. So I think we do not have the same 24 hours in a day. Absolutely not. The burnout thing led it for me, and I'm like so of all the different things that I'm teaching in the About Time course, for me it's, can we follow where life is leading us? So not only have I got the energy for this, but like if I lean into my intuition and what my body wants rather than what my brain is saying, because our brains do a number on us all of the time, it's like, where is life trying to lead me? What's the focus? What's the pull? And can I do that? So like at the moment, I'm making some changes in my business that feel uncomfortable, but important, right? And the knock-on impact of that might be quite a negative financial knock-on. And it's like, can I allow the discomfort where my brain is like, no, this is wrong. You can't do this. You shouldn't do this. Can I allow all of that? Because what I'm doing is trusting the body response of where things are going. So I think there's that. I don't think, like you said at the start, Nicole, with kind of Taylor Swift as a good example, but we can't sit here and say I've got the same 24 hours in a day as Charlotte. I do not have 2 young children. I don't have a job alongside a coaching business. Like, it's just nonsense. And I have a husband who also works from home, so we're both broadly around all of the time. It's not comparable. It's not comparable. So no, I don't think we all have the same 24 hours in a day. Similarly, the last time I recorded the first episode of this podcast, my period actually started on the podcast. I discovered afterwards, right? But I don't have the same 24 hours. Too much information, but there we go. If you got to the end, well done. But I don't have so that 24 hours, the 24 hours that followed that, very different from the 24 hours now when I'm on like day 12, 13, and I'm in that like high energy, the testosterone's coming in, all of that stuff plays. It's a very, very different place to be, right? So no, we do not have all the same 24 hours, and we get to choose, and we should stop guilting and shaming people that make different choices. If you want to sleep in, sleep in. If you want to get up really early, get up really early. And if you want to stay up really late, stay up really late. And if you want to go to bed early, go to bed early. And if you want to nap in the day, nap in the day. And like basically, whatever the fuck you want to do it, but have in mind the goal, right? So the actions you take have to be in some way measured against the goal that you're trying to achieve. So there has to be some intentionality in there, but we don't need to keep trying to fit ourselves into a teeny tiny box of this is the one way of doing things. Because there is my way of doing things, and there is Nicole's way of doing things, and there is Jan's way of doing things, and there is Charlotte's way of doing things, and they can all be different, and they can all be right. So that is my answer, Nicole. Thank you for asking. So we don't need my links because all of my links are in there anyway. But Nicole, where can people find you if they want to check you out?
The very talkative one. Okay, so my full name is Nicole Trick, as in trick or treat, Steinbach, because I married into a German family. And that is my website, tricksteinbach.com. But way more fun is to check out my podcast, Celebrate Brave Careers.
Amazing. Thank you. Charlotte, over to you, please.
The place I'm most active is LinkedIn. So check me out on Charlotte Williams on LinkedIn, and also I have quite an active blog on my website. So that's charlottewilliamscoaching.co.uk.
Amazing. Thank you, Charlotte. And Jan?
Right, so where I hang out the most, although I watch TikToks, is on Facebook, and you can just get me on Facebook under the name of Jan King.
Lovely. Thank you. So, ladies, it's been an absolute pleasure. I so appreciate you taking the time out of your 24 hours, your very precious 24 hours to be here. And that is it from me today. But yeah, I just so appreciate you all, and for taking part in the conversation, and for sharing yourselves. And for people listening, I hope that you can hear over the course of these 2 episodes and the 6 people that I've spoken to, that there isn't one way, and you get to choose how you spend your time. And there's lots of different factors and things that go in to what your 24 hours looks and feels like. So please give yourself some grace and some compassion around how you are spending your time. Okay, thank you so much, and I will see you next time. Thanks, ladies. Before you go, I so hope that you enjoyed today's episode. And if you did, I'd like to ask you a favor, please, because the way that this podcast grows and the way that more people get to benefit from these materials is that more people find it. And that means that subscribes and likes and shares are so important to this space. So my ask of you, if you got value from the podcast today, is give it a review, give it a like, share it with a friend, and make sure that you are subscribed. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate you being here, and I look forward to continuing to support you to do life, business, relationships, and all of it your way.